4 games into the season, and there's only one question on the minds of Bruins fans. How do they avoid the President's Trophy curse?
This is hockey right here.
Bruins! Whoa! 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 Whoa!
Oh, shoot. Sorry. Bruins level, garden level, a Bruins podcast coming back at you for episode 2. Dan Conlon, Cam Stewart, just a couple of guys talking bees, man. Just trying to survive the Don Sweeney era. But your Boston Bruins, Dan, 3-1-0. And look, 82-0 was crazy. Like, that just wasn't going to happen. But 81-1-0 is still on the table.
I think that's the bar right now. The Patriots are first
here.
Patriots are first in the AFC East. Back to first in the AFC East. The Bruins are tied for first in their division. Things are back to normal in Boston right now, and it's a good time to be a Boston fan.
Tatum, Roman Anthony, Drake May, Fraser Minton, baby. Like, it's all coming together.
Fraser Mint him. Yep.
Fuck. Yes.
Thank you, Toronto.
Thank you, dude. We need to start seriously questioning whether they have won that trade, which we will do later. But Dan, at time recording this, Bees are about to head out west, 3-1-0. Like I said, they lose that wild one on Columbus Day to Tampa. But so far, this is not what we expected, man. We didn't expect the team to be leading the league in goals at the time of this recording. Like, what the hell, man? They've played some good teams, played some bad teams. They also played Buffalo, which is somewhere way off the map at this point. You surprised by 3-1 though?
I am surprised. I was expecting probably 2-2 getting wins against the Blackhawks and the Sabres. 3-1 is not something I expected. Honestly, it could have been 4-0 if they played 3 periods yesterday. They played a good 40 minutes. But I am very surprised. But they are doing everything they said they would do, which is being a tough hockey team to play against, having good defense for the most part, good goaltending. They're doing everything they say they do, and I give them props for that. And we'll see how the rest of the season goes. But if they can continue to play like this, I mean, a wild card that's not out of reach. And I guess we hate Gavin McKenna because this team does not want to see him on this team. They do not want a top draft pick.
I can't wait to look back in that in 10 years, by the way. Like, I don't mind it now because we have to watch it every night. But, like, in 10 years, we're going to look back on that and be like, well, fuck. When Pittsburgh inevitably steals them, like, they get absolutely rigged to win the draft lottery. Justin Brazeau's 40 goals aren't enough. And the Penguins also get Gavin McKenna to add to his line. I mean, it's just inevitable at this point, man.
It is. And I've already started seeing, it's kind of funny, we thought the Bruins were going to have a long season and we were getting prepared for that. But it's just
only 8 games. It's actually shorter than half the league.
It's a general reminder for Bruins fans that it could be worse. You could be a Sabres fan. The garbage, the bags on top of the heads are already out. It's 3 games in. I mean, they've scored. I think they've been outscored 11-2 or something like that.
Dude, I love the commitment to the bit from the Sabres, by the way. Like, they just said, no matter what, we're not going to make the playoffs. Like the last couple of years, they've been a pretty free-flowing, really fun offensive team, with Thompson and Peterka and like they're and obviously Dahlin kind of stepping up his offensive game, man. Like, they've been so fun to watch if you're not a Sabres fan. And this year, Peterka's gone. You saw Josh Norris as your 1C, and they can't score any goals. Like, they cannot score at all, bro. It's such a good commitment to the bit that it's like, no matter what, we're going to make a team that just can't make the playoffs. That doesn't matter how much young talent we have or where that talent is spread out. The other holes in our game are going to be way too big, and we're not going to make the playoffs. It's unbelievable bit, dude.
I know, and I went to Buffalo last week for the Buffalo Patriots game, and they're a great sports town. Definitely a great football town, but they're just waiting for something to cheer about with that team. And the other league, the whole rest of the league is kind of laughing at it. But from the inside, I could definitely tell people are ready to burn stuff down. And if I'm a GM, if I'm Don Sweeney, I am calling in every week to see how they're doing, checking on them, see what's going on. Everyone that leaves Buffalo ends up doing good or winning a Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
Eichel, Reinhardt. So
Yeah.
yeah, Giharu. So if I'm Don Sweeney, I am calling to see, hey, is Alex Tuck? Is he? How's he doing? Is he happy? See what they can get because Don Sweeney does make trades well, and people that leave the Buffalo Sabres usually end up doing pretty well. So it's something to monitor, and we'll see how the rest of the season goes. But I wouldn't mind maybe one or two of the players on that team. I'm sure they wouldn't mind a change of scenery as well.
High key, by the way, Don Sweeney's best free agent signing as Bruins GM did come from a guy out of Buffalo because they weren't starting Ullmark that last year, and they got him at an absolute bargain of a deal. The fact that Buffalo couldn't extend 4 for $20 for a guy who ended up winning the Vezina is peak Buffalo. It's so good,
It
Buffalo, man. But yeah, bro, everybody else, Nikita Zadorov leaves Buffalo, has an illustrious career. Has an illustrious career with the Bruins. But let's look at what they've done so far at the risk of because I could just spend all day talking about how shit Buffalo is, and it would be a lot of fun. Also, do you remember that Sabres fan who went on that unbelievable rant a couple years ago? I saw
a rant. I saw a rant a few days ago about a Sabres fan leaving the stadium saying they haven't made the playoffs since I was 6 and I was in Disney World having the time of my life. But yeah, you gotta be more specific on. You gotta be more specific on.
Dude, it was this guy. It was this guy named Dwayne. I remember his name from that. He just he called into the sports talk radio and they just let him go for 5 minutes. He was just ranting about the Sabres. And one of the big things he was talking about was one of their old players, one of their alumni, was doing an event handing out turkeys on Thanksgiving, and they put him in this dog shit Chinese knockoff Sabres jersey. It was Danny Gare, that's who it was. And they had him in his jersey, but it's clearly a China knockoff. And dude, I saw this event a couple weeks ago where Rick Middleton was at a Bruins event, and he's clearly wearing a knockoff Bruins jersey. It was one of the Centennial ones. I'm like, he didn't even wear this jersey. And I'm like, I wrote it down. I'm like, are we becoming the Sabres here? Is this what we're supposed to be? Because we're wearing these cheap ass Chinese knockoff jerseys. But anyway, the team in the real jerseys actually been doing fairly well. As we said, it kind of started with that Caps game too. That was patented how the Bruins should win on opening night. You're going to need Swayman to make 35 saves. You're going to need David Pastrnak to get 3 points. And that's how they ended up winning the game. That's against a team that was the top team in the Eastern Conference last year.
Yeah. And, that's exactly how you want to start the season. Like you said, Swayman did what he did what he had to do. He didn't make, he's not making the flashiest saves, but he's making the saves you need to make, which were saves he wasn't making last year. So Swayman played well. He did what he had to do. He had 30 plus saves. You're playing a team that was a good team last year and should be a good team this year. You're on the road. After seeing that, like you said, the first line, I think they accounted for all 3 goals. So you kind of were you were considering hey, this is how we're gonna have to win games. The first line is gonna have to do everything. Swayman's gonna have to let up 1 goal at most. Lowry took a few hits from Wilson, which I think he might still be seeing him in his nightmares a little bit. But props to Lowry, he took some hits to make some plays. And yeah, it was an encouraging sign, and kind of thought maybe we're only going to get our offense from the first line. And then we played another game and a few more games after that. And we were like, you know what, we actually can score goals from other lines as well. So very encouraged by the first game. And then after that, we kind of saw, this team can score goals, not just from Pastrnak.
Yeah, and they did it against Chicago, but yeah, they could score some goals. They've had depth scoring, which has surprised me early on. There's some minus marks in that third line that's a little concerning since that's your matchup line, but they have gotten some goals up and down the lineup. And you said Swayman's been awesome, dude. He's been great so far. You said though, he doesn't have the big save yet. Jonas Corposalo kind of does. That next game against Chicago, like just like we all had it, game 2 of the season, Bruins Blackhawks, and you were gonna like Jonas Corposalo was gonna steal you a game against the Chicago Blackhawks. Like we all knew that was gonna happen. We all knew he was gonna have 2 just unbelievable saves in overtime so that Fraser Minton could win it. Just like we had it, Dan.
I know, and Corpusalo's numbers aren't great. I think he's at around an 850 save percentage.
Yeah, that Monday wasn't great on Jonas. It wasn't terrible, but the numbers were not great.
Yeah, so like I said, the numbers can be a little bit deceiving, but he has stepped up. He had that breakaway save with 5 minutes left against Tampa when they were down 1, which is a big time save if you want to keep your team in the game. So I'm impressed by the goaltending. Swayman, 966 save percentage. She's playing, lights out. There were some questions. I know some people were asking, why didn't Swayman play against the Lightning? And Vasilevsky didn't play either. It was a battle of the backups. And looking at that game, the Lightning pretty much had tap-in goals. There were some breakdowns. Not all Corpusalo's fault. So I don't blame his numbers completely on him. And then all the Bruins goals were goals from top of the circle. After seeing those goals, I think they realized like, hey, we just need to shoot the puck on net. But yeah, I think the goaltending has been very good for the most part. And, we do have one of the highest paid goalie tandems in the league, paying Swayman $8 million, Corpusalo $3 million, which is very expensive for a backup. I'd say most backups aren't making more than 2, if that.
For a backup who played 27 games last year, 25 games, whatever it was. Exactly. It's not like they weren't platooning, man. This was not Swayman and Ullmark, but they're gonna have to play him. They're gonna have to play him a little bit more than that. It would have been 24 games because I think Swayman played 58. They're gonna have to play him a little bit more than that. But can you really roll out Corpusalo 35 times this year and expect to make the playoffs?
I don't think you can. And you're paying Swayman. Swayman's who you want to build on, and you want him to be a part of the McAvoy and Pastrnak group of leaders. So, I'm not really too concerned if Corpusalo is happy. I know he expressed his unhappiness, I think, in the offseason, saying he didn't like how he was used. And, it was a different coaching staff. Maybe he likes his coaching staff better, but I really don't want to cater to Corpusalo's demands. If he wants to leave, I think we were kind of seeing if DiPietro could make a jump, and he didn't do too well. So we really don't have a clear backup goalie in Providence. So I think we're just kind of waiting and seeing how the season goes. But I would, whatever we can utilize Swayman, if he could play 60 games very well, then he should be playing 60 games. But like you said,
do you think he can do that though? Do you think he can play that's like Shesterk and Hellebuck?
I don't know. He hasn't really played that. He played 58 last year, you said, and he didn't play well. I think you'd at least want to see if he could get a training camp in 60 games, if he could play well and know, like, hey, we have a 60-game goaltender. Yeah. And this was a season we said beforehand. I know we're getting, more cocky now that we're tied for first in the Atlantic, but this is a season where we want to see if things work out. If Fraser Minton, if he's going to be a good center in the league. Can Swayman play a full 60 games with a training camp and be a Vezina candidate? So I'm all for it. I really don't care if Corpusalo is happy, but if you want to win games, if Swayman started yesterday, do you think the Bruins would have won? I'm not sure. Those goals were, pretty easy goals.
It's some other problems, yeah.
Marco Sturm's emphasized he wants to, take it 2 games at a time, and we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, so becomes a question of, can Swayman play 55 to 60? Because he had his worst year last year playing 58, which was by far his most amount of games. But then that same question is also, he also didn't have a preseason. He did it to himself, but he didn't have a preseason. So, if he has a preseason, then plays 60 games, maybe he's not Hellebuck, but he can be an all-star goalie again. And certainly that, again, we've said it before, and we'll say it again. That is what the Bruins are going to need. They're going to need him to be an all-star and then some with this team in order to get there. Because you look at what they did in Buffalo or against Buffalo in the third game, really wasn't a lot there. It was one of the games of all time that the Bruins won, but you saw a lot of their deficiencies again in that Lightning game. defensive deficiencies, I should say, because the fact that they put together 3 goals in that second period and made it a game was exciting. That's a game they would have lost 7-0 last year, right? Like that's a game that just would have gotten completely out of hand. It would have been like 6-1, but it was really kind of that first pairing, that McAvoy Lowry. That was a little concerning, Dan. Like they were a little leaky. The first 3 Tampa goals were just directly off Bruins turnovers.
Exactly. And you're kind of relying on McAvoy on that line to be the anchor and, make up for what Lowry's not doing right. And he's looked a little bit shaky. He had that Four Nations injury. He hasn't played meaningful games since February. He is your best defenseman. So you kind of want to give him the benefit of the doubt, but definitely not the start of the season you want for McAvoy. If things continue, see how Lindholm returns. If that line still continues to struggle, do you swap, Lindholm and Lowry and put Lowry with Peak? There's a lot of things you could juggle around with. But yeah, I would say the Tampa game wasn't a great game for them. The first 20 minutes were not great. I like how they responded, though. Like you said, that's a game last year, but that would have been a blowout. But if you said the Bruins said they're going to be a tough team to play against, whether it's a win or loss, and that was not a good. No losses is good, but it kind of sent a message to Tampa. You're not just going to come up to Boston and blow our lights out. And Tampa was 0-2. Like, they have a great head coach.
They needed a win, yeah.
They have a very talented roster. They needed a win. They did not want to go 0-3. They were probably still angry with those preseason games with the Panthers. So I think, there's no such thing as a good loss in my opinion, but, 3-1, good game against Tampa. It was a good way to see, what this team's going to be like this year. And if that's what every game's going to be like, then it's going to be a good game and a good game to watch.
Yeah, they play 82 games. They weren't going to go 80-3 or whatever. Who was it who said that? That was a great quote. But the Bruins, top of the Atlantic Division, start telling your kids about the Atlantic Division champion Boston Bruins, actually tied with Florida. But I think because they're tied with Florida, I think we need to ask the question, Dan. Did the Bruins win the Brad Marchand trade? Look, that's looking like a really nice first-round pick. It's going to be about 28th at best. But we need to start asking that question if the Bruins won the Brad Marchand trade. Let's look at some high-lows, shall we? Because we're a week into the season here for the Bruins. 3-1, a little surprising. And it's surprising because I think they've gotten contributions up and down the lineup. We both have a couple of guys that we are high on and low on so far in the first week of the season. Dan, you want to start? You want to give us a high? You want to start us on a positive note here?
Yeah, let's go positive first. Well, this team has scored 13 goals this year. They're tied for first in the league with Colorado. So anytime anytime you're in the same league as Makar and McKinnon in offensive category is a good sign.
They look like the same team. They really do. It seems totally driven on world-class offensive talent and not much else.
We're tied with the Panthers in record-wise, and we're tied with Colorado offensively. But they're getting points from everyone. Everyone scored a point besides Lowry, Hampus Lindholm, and Kuznetsov. So they're getting contributions from everyone, some more than others. Their PK has been perfect. They're not fighting anyone this year, which is crazy. They're the heaviest team in the league, Wayne.
Heaviest team in the league, baby. You want to talk about leading the league in something? Leading the league in weight, motherfuckers. Yes. That's what's going to win them some hockey games in 2025.
But, yeah, I'll start with Pavel Zacha. I think he's had a good year so far. He's tied for first on the team with Pasta with 5 points this year. He does whatever they want him to do. He's on the first power play. He can be on the second power play. He is on the second line with 2 people he's never really played before in his life. This line has 4 games in, and they've looked like they've played with each other last year as well. So I'm very impressed with him. He's doing stuff offensively. He's doing whatever it takes for this team to win, whether it's on the first line. I'm sure it's not easy to tell someone, hey, like, I'm going to take you off the line with your best friend and fellow countryman, top 5 player in the NHL.
The guy who can make you a 50-point scorer in your sleep.
Yeah, exactly. So he's done it. He hasn't caused a commotion about it, and I'm happy the numbers are showing up for him. He's got 5 points through 4 games,
He
and
actually wants to shoot, man. He wants to shoot.
yeah, he
Which
does.
is something that was, like, not always in his repertoire the last couple of seasons, even though he's had some pretty productive seasons, like for Pavel Zacha, you know what I mean? But like that's a problem still with this Bruins team, willingness to shoot, and really more so willingness to hit the net with a shot. That's been like super frustrating for me, even though it's been a positive start to the season. They just like hate throwing the puck on the net. Like last year, the last 2 years, they just couldn't generate any kind of 5-on-5 offense, like at all. They just weren't getting shots off. Low Ride just hates putting it on, like, on the cage, hates making the goalie make a save. But Zacha is ripping the puck.
Closer.
He's getting very close.
He
man.
is.
It's a couple of those.
He is. So
what was that play made? Was that play made in the Tampa game? He has like a nice back check play and then skates the 150 feet right into the slot. He's got a beautiful look, top of the dot, and just rips it wide. Like nobody, no screen, nothing, just rips it wide. I'm like, what are we doing here, man? What are we doing here? I'm gonna be high on Casey Middlestat through 4 games. And Dan Conlon, man, if there's one name I didn't think I would be saying that I would be high on 4 games into the season, it's Casey freaking Middlestat. He's got 2 goals, no assists, but 2 goals and a +3 through 4 games. Like Casey Middlestat last year, the dude was just getting cardio for the Bruins. Like, and I was sympathetic, right? The line he played on stunk and the team he played on stunk. But he didn't really have a great year to begin with Colorado, a team much like the Bruins in terms of their scoring ability. And he comes to Boston, just doesn't do much. He's never been a defensive player at all. And that's what's probably kept him from making, I would say, real big money, but he's making $1 million more a year than Zacha is. And he's looked better at that. He's never going to be like your top penalty kill guy. But he looked good on the power play, especially in the preseason. And a week into the season, he's a +3 for a line that, you, like you said, with Zacha, you just really didn't know what you were going to get out of that line. It should be the first line for this Bruins team and nobody else. But Casey Middlestat, I'm high on him. I'm smoking that Casey Middlestat pack.
As you should. And a lot of people also, Middlestat, former Sabre.
Former Sabre that's really making a name for himself. Yeah.
But
it's like the only we found the only 2 former Sabres who leave and don't get better. I'll talk about another one in a minute, but yeah.
Yeah. But I think a lot of people kind of don't expect Middlestat to be on this team long term. I know there's rumors about him on the draft a few months ago, being traded. Going to this year, people say he's a trade deadline candidate. I mean, the guy's, I think, 26 years old. He has a decent contract, but only 1 more year left after this year. So he fits like this. He fits the category of people like age and production wise that you want to keep if they do well and get better defensively. So I'm hoping he has a good year. I think, a lot of people have written him off and don't want him on the team, but if he plays well, I mean, we need that talent, and that's something we lack. So hopefully he keeps it up, but yeah, it's been strong signs from the second line.
Dude, like he could be a huge difference for the Bruins, Casey Middlestat. Because Zacha's always going to be like, Zacha did not feel like he had a good year last year at all. And it was like 48 points. Like he was 57, I think he was 57 or 59, 57, and then like 48 last year. So it wasn't like this crazy drop off for a team that dropped off so hard in the standings and in goal scoring. So like if Casey Middlestat can put up some numbers like that, if he could be a 50-point guy, like that's a huge, huge difference for this team in terms of making the playoffs. But anyway, who you low on after 1 week into the season, Dan?
There honestly isn't too many lows. I'd like to emphasize that this was a productive week, a positive week. But watching games, I think I'll start with Hampus Lindholm. Unfortunately, he was out pretty early in the first intermission of second game of the year. He's coming off an injury. He's coming off an injury last year as well. I think we were kind of hoping he'd have a kind of bounce back year, but he's on the wrong side of 30 now. He has a nice contract, kind of a fluke injury, lower body. I don't think it was a contact injury. So coming into the year, had a little bit of high expectations for him. We knew we needed him, and he's been out practically 3 games this year. He made the trip to Las Vegas, which is a good sign. But just something to monitor. I thought we wouldn't be talking about this, but something now that we have to monitor this year.
Well, dude, it was one of those things too, like going into the season, everyone wanted to say that the Bruins were going to be better than last year. And like they obviously didn't add anything in free agency. So what people were looking at was getting your top 2 defensemen back. And it's like, yeah, like that's true. That's you're better with Charlie McAvoy and Hampus Lindholm than without. But Hampus missed 65 games last year. Like that's not a guy who A, hops right back into the fold and looks like vintage Hampus Lindholm, and B, they're much more likely to get hurt again. Same thing with McAvoy. Like this is his second shoulder injury. He's still young. He's younger than us. But he's like now susceptible, and he had an infection, so he's more susceptible to a future injury. Like there's just no guarantee that these guys are playing 80 games this year. But obviously we see how much of a difference Hampus makes. Like as soon as he went down last year, they immediately became a worse team, and it didn't really get much better. So down on the situation on Hampus Lindholm. How about that? That he's hurt again.
How about you,
Dan?
Who are you?
I'm gonna go. Dude, I kind of hate to do this because I like the guy, and I really want him to be successful. And the first 4 games have actually not been that bad, but the guy I'm going to be low on right now is Mason Lohrei. Okay. And it's a little harsh. This is a guy who's like a -40 last year, and he's actually a +1 through 4 games. And that McAvoy-Lohrei combination going into Monday had like the second best expected goals added of any defense pairing in the league. I think they were second. And they were brutal on Monday. Like they sucked on Monday, and you just kind of saw all the kind of worst Mason Lohrei stuff, which is, to be fair, better than last year. But I'm low on him because I'm ready for him to take the next big step. Like this is a dude who's played well over 100 games at the NHL level. You got the whole season last year. He's basically the only defenseman. He and Zadorov were the only defensemen that got to play the entire season. I would like to see him on the power play, and there could be some more opportunities with that with Hampus Lindholm out for however long he's out. But he keeps missing the net. He's not as strong as he was last year clearing the zone, which I'm hoping will come. I think he's using his frame well in his skating more so than his physical game. Heaviest team in the league, and he might be the lightest guy on the team at like 6'4". But just a little low on Mason Lohrei, just a little bit. Nothing too drastic.
Back in college, and maybe this will make the difference. Back in college, I tweeted, I added him too. I said, take Torrey Krug off the power play. Kid can't hit net. And he liked the tweet. So he acknowledged it. I thought that was the coolest thing ever. And you know what? That was early on in his career, and he ended up doing pretty well for himself, making the Stanley Cup, signing a big contract with the Blues.
Send the tweet, man. Send the tweet.
Maybe I got to send it again.
You got to do it with Lohrei.
I'm not sure if he has a Twitter or not, or if he'll even acknowledge it. But yeah, his expectations are a lot higher this year. So if the bar is higher, you're expecting more. And you got to hit net sometimes. And not only missing net is it bad for the scoring chance, but it puts yourself in a vulnerable position. Lohrei has a good shot. When it misses a net, it goes up the boards and creates odd man opportunities. So, hitting the net is something we should keep an eye on the rest of the year.
He'll score on Bobrovsky next week. Is what'll probably happen.
He makes up for it.
The dude I'm actually low on, by the way, for defenseman is Henry Jokiharju. So I put Lohrei first because we do have some more expectations from him. I don't get the Jokiharju thing at all. I know the Bruins probably weren't going to pull one of those trades for Rasmus Anderson or anything. But why did you need to extend this guy? He didn't prove anything to you at the end of last season. He's not doing anything this year. He's not a very physical defenseman. He's not great at moving the puck. Like he's not going to be an offensive threat. I just don't understand what he does for you at all. And like, there's so many guys on the market that would have been around the same price, pretty cheap, that can give you something. And the other problem is you don't really develop any defensemen. That's why Lowry had to be up so early in his career. But Yogi Haru is who I'm actually low on. Like I can't with that guy right now.
I mean,
It's
yeah,
like
it was
a waste of space. Like just getting cardio. Like,
I think they kind of made a panic decision on that. I'm not sure what the market was like, but I know the free agent class last summer was pretty bad. So the Bruins, instead of saving cap space and signing people on minimum contracts, see if they can prove it. I mean, the Harris kid has played very well. So we can't develop defensemen really. So I mean, we didn't have anyone in the ropes that could have took his spot.
Well, there was a guy on the market who was a well-developed Bruins defenseman. He just happens to be left-handed instead. Like Matt Grzelcyk didn't have a contract till like 3 weeks ago, coming off his career high. And I'm like looking at it the whole summer. I'm like, fuck it, man. What if you just have two left-handed shots on the same pairing? Could we just do that? We used to do Seidenberg and Chara 15 years ago. Could we just do that again? Because like Grzelcyk was as good as just like any vet minimum guy out there. Instead, you've extended Yogi Haru. I get it. He's right-handed, but like, fuck, man. I can't understand what he does here.
Neither do I, but we have to, that's why we're low on him right now, but we're stuck with him for 2 more years after this, as we are with Jeannot. So there's a bunch of guys in the first year of their contracts that we kind of have to hope get better before we jump the gun. But
Tanner Jeannot's like 1/10 of his way to his goal total though. So he's got one this year. So I haven't put him on the low list yet. He almost he and Yogi Haru should just have a spot there. And it's like, all right, are we adding anybody to the low list this week? Oh, okay, yeah. They have opportunities for promotion. Like if they have 2 good weeks in a row, they can get promoted. But they're kind of permanent low right now.
Until further notice, they're on the low list.
Like Vidarian, they are permanently low. I'm low on them. But yeah, I don't know. I just nothing from Yogi Haru. How are you feeling about Charlie McAvoy so far?
I could feel better if I had to sum it up. I think he's getting some hate, and rightfully so. Not to mention, I feel like he was kind of also involved in a captaincy race earlier, and now it's kind of looked like a clear favorite. But yeah, like I said earlier, he's struggled a little bit. The Lightning game was pretty rough. He's coming off an injury, so like I said, you gotta give him the benefit of the doubt. You know what he's capable of. It's not like we're looking at someone in his first or second year that we don't know what he can do. But he's coming off an injury. I'm going to give him some time on this. Got a tough road trip coming up, and hopefully he looks better. And if he doesn't look better, I would certainly play around with the lines. Maybe if Hampus is healthy, 4 games in the season, and we're already saying that. Hampus is healthy. Maybe we move him up to that line, make that your number 1 line, and see if Laura.
I was surprised he wasn't paired with Hampus to start the season. Like I absolutely understand why. I understand why it's important to have Hampus on that second pairing, anchoring that second pairing, and giving Lowry those kinds of minutes up top. Like I do understand that, but at least to start the season, like we just see what McAvoy's like when he was playing with guys like Lowry and Zadorov last year. Like he just feels he has to do way too much. He takes the physical aspect way out of his game. He's got to be the one that clears the zone every time. Like I just think he gets almost inside his own head when he's not playing with someone as sound at both ends of the ice as Hampus Lindholm is. You're right. Like the dude just missed 32 games. It was an infection. It was a surgery. He says he's as healthy as he's ever been. And the other thing too is he's playing in a totally different system than what he played in the last couple of years, like with how aggressive defensemen were under Jim Montgomery and pinching and carrying the puck. And like, obviously it was weird. He's good at those things, but I don't think Jim Montgomery got the best hockey out of him. I thought Bruce Cassidy did. So it's kind of a weird situation with, he's supposed to be this offensively gifted player, but when he was playing for an offensive minded coach, it didn't really work out. Now you're going to get a little bit of in between. Like Marco Sturm's definitely more defensive minded, but no matter what, like Charlie McAvoy is your number one defenseman. Like that's not going to change.
Yeah, and I thought it was an interesting
Yeah.
stat too with Sturm, which we haven't really talked too much about, but Sturm, Cassidy, and Montgomery all started off 3-0 with the Bruins.
I did love that stat. I did love that stat. So we
So
don't
I was like,
really
I
know
don't know
what's
what to
happening
think
yet.
of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I after the 3-0 start, I'm like, wow, Sturm's doing really well. Like, is this like a sign of things to come? And then I saw that stat. I'm like, all right, stop the bus.
He's going to win Coach of the Year. That's what that means. He's going to win the Jack Adams at some point. It also means he's going to get fired.
Stars. Yep.
Yeah, he's going to win the Cup somewhere else. And it also means he's going to get fired by Don Sweeney. Don Sweeney's going to outlive him, of course. Man.
Yeah, Don Sweeney will get 8 head coaches in his tenure,
as
you should.
God, I can't wait, man. God, I can't wait. If there's someone that knows how to F things up, it is certainly Don Sweeney and the Boston Bruins of the last 2 seasons. But you know who can't get out of their own way?
Who?
The National Hockey League. Gary Bettman. Best sport, worst league. And you see that really in the first week of the season. Like it hasn't been a really glowing start marketing wise. They start their season in the middle of the baseball playoffs, which I think a lot of us are like, you got to start it at some point, right? But like I think maybe early November is better or late September and space it out a little bit. But it's weird when like things are really ramping up, both in football and in baseball. You just start hockey at the same time. You get people on ESPN, Ben McDonald, who just are like, no, I'm not going to watch hockey. I'm not going to do that. I don't care that's on our network. And then you've got 5 p.m. Eastern time starts for the defending Cup champs, raising a banner at 4:45 Eastern time on a Tuesday. It's weird. It's ridiculous. You get all 16. You get all 32 playing on Thursday. I think you have 14 or 16 games on Thursday, and then none on Friday. God, I love this league, Dan. I love this league.
Nobody watches TV on Fridays these days. We all know that.
Like
especially in Canada.
On Saturday, when you've got college football on, like why not do something on Friday? Like market it, man. Like I don't know, Friday night hockey or whatever the fuck. You know what I mean? Just absolutely market it as to be something you watch on Friday nights. And they're like, no.
If you're looking for a job,
we can't compete with whatever fucking Tulane Navy on a Friday night on ESPN2. That's what's going to be on at all the bars, instead of just throwing a couple of marquee hockey games on. They don't want to do it. They don't want to do it. They want to save it for Saturday when everyone else in this country is watching college football anyway. It just like it makes no fucking sense.
If you're looking for a job, you should apply for the NHL front office because obviously they're hiring anyone with little experience. Obviously, no games on Friday. That is just concerning. And then, one game on Sunday, which there was 1 goal scored.
One goal in the NHL on Sunday.
When you want to grow the game, which the NHL, I think it's the best sport in the world, and you want to grow it, if you want people to watch it, you have to be on TV. And they weren't on TV on Friday in the opening week of the season. You had the success of the Four Nations tournament, how great that was. I think that was a great comparison where people are realizing, is basketball that much better than hockey? I mean, in comparison, you had Connor McDavid going off against the Kachucks and everyone in Montreal, which was one of the best games I've watched recently. And then on the other channel, you had Drewski playing in the celebrity game. So I think the NHL has a lot of momentum. I think hiring guys like Biz has done a lot for the sport. It's brought a lot of good attention to the game.
Put him everywhere, man.
Put him everywhere. Spinning chicklets, all that stuff. They need more guys like that. It's not just going to be him, but they've done a lot, with that to, go in the right direction. And then there's always just something they do wrong. And, it could go back years, when they changed the playoff format.
Which we're all sick of at this point. I think
we're all sick of. Yeah. The offsides rule. I mean, they've done so many things where they're just too stubborn to realize, or admit, hey, this was wrong. We're listening to the fans. We're listening to the players. let's just change it. I think every player has spoken out about the playoff format. Like
Sucks, man.
We're playing the same team every year. And you know what? I get it. You want to form rivalries and everything like that. But if you look with the Bruins in the past, with the 1-8 playoff format, it always worked itself out. We were playing the Canadians in 2010, 2011.
Here's the thing.
We were playing Toronto in the first round in 2013. Like, it happens. It's supposed to happen. Let it happen naturally.
Well, it's so funny. They're like, well, we'll do this divisional matchups in the playoffs, and that's what we'll do to get the rivalries. Like you said, that's how we'll get rivalries. It's like, okay, or we could do what we used to do and have the Bruins and Canadians play more than twice a year or 3 times a year. How about we just make them play 8 friggin' times a year, and then you'll get a rivalry, man. Trust me. But now we get a situation where the first and second rounds are way better than the conference finals most of the time. And what sucks is for those of us who have watched playoff hockey our whole lives through the 2 different formats, you're gonna get great first and second round series no matter what. Even if it's 1-8, you're gonna get that. So why not set it up to where the 2 best teams can play in the conference finals instead of Carolina just falling ass backwards into it and then getting trounced by Florida? We're just going to see more of that. Dallas kind of did the same thing in the West this year. The NHL just loves not being able to get out of their own way. There's no reason for there to be no hockey on a Friday, no NHL hockey on a Friday. They finally do this big deal with ESPN a couple years ago, and then they got a desk from IKEA, for their Stanley Cup final setup. What was that, 2 years ago? The first Florida Cup. And it's, Messier sucks on that broadcast. They got ESPN baseball people saying they won't watch hockey ever. It's like, dude, it's just such a disaster. You know what Gary Bettman thinks? He's like, we need 2 more teams. We need 2 more expansion. We need 34 fucking teams in this league. It's so weird. And he won't admit that there's clearly a problem with the state tax thing. Is it the biggest problem hockey has? No, but it's kind of a big deal. Long-term IR was a big deal, and they got rid of it. They got rid of that thing, that loophole. And yet, Gary Bettman is telling you you're stupid for thinking that no state tax is an advantage. Brad Marchand's literally telling me that they got to re-sign their 3 guys because they don't have state taxes. And Gary Bettman, the commissioner, is like, nah, there's actually no problem. So it's just, that is in a weird way refreshing, Dan, that we're a week into the season and the NHL hasn't changed in that sense.
I get there's this Olympics. I get that changes a little bit with the scheduling, having 2 weeks off in February. So I get, it could be a little weird, a lot of back-to-backs, but between the scheduling, playoff format, offsides rule, there's a lot of problems that NHL has, and Bettman's like, let's bring back the Atlanta Thrashers. That's what we should do, and that's very evident with what's going to go wrong next. How are they going to mess up the Olympics? Taking NHL players out of Olympics, that was a terrible move. You look at how great the Four Nations was last year, how much it grew the game. The game would have been so much higher and grown more if we were watching McDavid in the Olympics for the past 10 years and the Kachucks and everyone like that.
Yeah, so, you took out.
Yeah, it's always this
basically. It sucks.
Yeah,
man.
So worst run league in all sports.
Best sport, worst league. Best sport, worst league for sure.
Yep.
Let's look at speaking of the kind of the league in general. My heart broke last week, Dan. The dream has died on the vine. Jack Eichel resigns with the Vegas Golden Knights. Look, whatever, man. You don't want to be a hometown hero. You said your favorite hockey memory was watching the Bruins win the Stanley Cup, and you don't want to do that. That's fine. That's fine. We're not bitter at all. We're ready to move on. That takes away what was the biggest name in the 2026 free agent class, because obviously Kaprizov had re-signed and McDavid would re-sign. Man, would love to get someone, a generational talent, to just be like, yeah, I'll stay. You can pay me peanuts. That's fine. I'll just do that. But Jack Eichel off the board in Vegas. That was something we were both pretty high on for the Bruins, even though it was a bit of a pipe dream. It could have happened. It could have happened. So where do we shift our attention next now that Eichel's off the board?
It's tough. But I think you gotta realize that was a pipe dream. It would have been too perfect to put him and Pasternak in the same uniform. And these players like McDavid and Eichel, they're taking friendly deals. I mean, they kind
Yeah.
of just want to stay with the team and win. And now, I think with the salary cap rising, there's a lot of things you got to consider. Kirill, yet he's the highest paid player in the NHL now, and that some people say, is that an overpay? And it might be, but with the cap rising,
Maybe. Yeah.
I think that contract will age just the way the McAvoy contracts and the Pasternak contracts have aged.
Pasternak contract suddenly
McDavid
like
taking
the
a
best in the
discount.
league. Like suddenly that Pasta
I
deal
know.
is the best in the league at 11 million a year. I mean, the dude is, he's better than Kaprizov and he's getting paid a lot less. So yeah.
It's crazy too to think the difference between NHL players and NFL players. If this is the NFL, Pasternak would have requested a new contract yesterday. Like seeing these players, they sign a contract for 8 years and like, yep, that's it. Like I'll talk to you in 8 years if I'm still playing, or I'll request a trade in 5 years if our team sucks. But yeah, Eichel would have been a pipe dream. It would have been nice to have some hope, and maybe just lead us on a little bit longer. But you sign Marner. He has a good situation. He won a cup there. And the state tax there, I don't think Nevada has a state tax either.
Nope.
So that's another point to prove, going back to Marchand earlier.
It helps, man. It helps.
There's some restricted free agents, you may want to look at now. Natchez on Colorado. That's something to monitor. That could be a trade deadline candidate. We do have 2 first-round picks from other teams that I do not want. And we do have some players
you got 3 first-round picks the next 3 years. Like you've actually finally got that at your disposal. Natchez, though, real quick. I know Evan Marinofsky did something where he said, like, watch out for a Marty Natchez trade. I'm still waiting for waiting for a true blue big time hockey trade from Don Sweeney. I think the closest great hockey trade we've gotten from him was Hala for Zaka. Like that was a pretty good deal, but you just did it for 2 middle 6 guys. I'm talking hockey trade, man. 2 for 1, bring in a guy like Marty Natchez.
A Chiarelli trade.
Yeah. Yeah. Like a Chiarelli Sagan trade is exactly what I'm thinking. Yeah. Dude, I would
trade Phil Kessel and then Sagan 2 years later or 3 years later.
I think I'm in the territory of I would do anything for Marty Natchez to get him on the Bruins. He's a point a game guy last year, right? For the first time in his career, but he's a steady 25 goal guy. I think he was 70 points a couple of times, and he's big, he's physical enough. He's kind of got those things that Don Sweeney and Cam Neely get wet dreams over. He's a big enough guy. But he scores. He can play on the wing, can play at center. Did it for Carolina and Colorado. Both good teams, but very different teams, the way they attack. I'm a big Marty Natchez guy, Dan.
As you should. And you know what? What kind of package do you think would it take for the Bruins to acquire someone? What would be your hypothetical Bruins package for that? That would get the deal done.
This is tough because I didn't even think about it. I usually try not to think about these things. I'm like, just do it, Don, just do it. So he's going to be an RFA. I think if he's getting traded, Colorado is clearly in a position where they're like, we can't re-sign him, just like the guy they traded for him, Mikko Rantanen. And so I think a good GM can kind of hold their feet to the fire the way that Dallas did to Carolina. They gave up Stankoven, who's a heck of a prospect, but okay, they've got all these other dudes. They're going to get a top 10 player in the league, and Mikko Rantanen. If you're the Bruins, you're probably going to have to trade prospects, mainly because they're cheap enough for Colorado. Do you send Matt Poitras out for Marty Natchez? It's not a 1-for-1. You're probably going to include a pick, but are you willing to part with a Matt Poitras for someone like Natchez, knowing that Higgins is going to be on the team next year?
I would.
Like,
If you, I
or
mean,
you know what? Maybe it is Minton, by the way. You know, I kind of put those guys in the same boat in the offseason. Obviously, one's playing in the NHL and one's not. You know, maybe it's Minton because he's got more of a defensive acumen, and that's what Colorado's probably going to need. But like either one of those guys, I like both a lot. I'd like for them to be a part of the Bruins' future, but we're talking about an 80-point guy from last year, 84-point guy from last year coming in.
I would do it in a heartbeat because, I think you would rather
He's young. He's young too.
Pasta.
He's
Yeah,
26.
you're young, restricted free agents. You obviously got to sign them to a contract. And when you trade for someone that you need to sign, you got to take that in consideration if you had to trade for someone and also have to pay for them, pay them a contract. With where the Bruins are at with Pasta in his prime, McAvoy in his prime, Swayman, entering his prime, I'd rather have proven 25-year-old to 30-year-old players on the team than unproven 20 to 22-year-olds. And I'm not saying trade all the young guys, but if you can
Trade
get
them all.
yeah, as
Will
we've
Zellers.
done in the
Will they ask
past.
for Will Zellers in return? Will they want him
It's funny
back? Who knows?
when
Maybe.
I was thinking of that, I was like, who would you have to trade for Natchez? I'm like, two players I was thinking of that could possibly be part of a deal with two players we got from Colorado last year for Charlie Coyle.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you'd rather part with some prospects if it gets you proven players in the league, 80 points. He's also Czech, which always helps. There's a Czech connection there. We have two of them, so I would do it. I don't think I would hesitate on that. And then there's other guys too. You could look at, Alex Tuck on Buffalo. Like you said, the tables are starting to turn over there.
Always
He Tuck has played. He played at BC. He knows the area. He knows the hockey town. That's someone else. I think he's on a restricted free agent. Could put him on the second line. I don't think Arvidsson here is long term. So Tuck is also another person who is unrestricted, so probably would cost less. I'm not sure what a trade package for him would look like. I'm not sure if you could just get him for a draft pick or they're going to want
Tuck for Arvidsson straight up.
Honestly, the way Sweeney trades at Buffalo, you never know. We traded Anders Bork for Taylor Hall, but
that's a good point. I forgot about that one. That was a good trade. That's almost not even a hockey trade because it was such a fleece. I can't even count it. Yeah,
Arvidsson in a second for Tuck would be kind of similar to that, I think. But yeah, I look at Tuck as an unrestricted free agent. You kind of look at the deadline. I'm not sure if you want to pay the deadline tax or if you think you get him in free agency, but the way the Sabres are going, they're definitely going to trade him. So if you don't want to wait till free agency, if you want to secure a top six guy, I think that's what I say earlier in the show. Is call Buffalo every week, check in on them, see how they're doing. If they're still diffusing fires, I mean, we see this every year or every other year. Players say it's a new era. They bring a new coach, new GM. And
one player forces his way out because he
Sabres.
hates his life so much. He's like, this is the worst shithole in Shitsville. Please get me out of here. I'll do anything to get out of here. It's a cycle. It's a cycle. And then the next year it's like, well, now they've got the strategy right. Or now they've got the young players. And it's just, I mean, this is the second time I've almost gone on a tangent about the Buffalo Sabres. It's sad, but hey, they're a team in your division. You can't feel too bad for them. But dude, I would love Tuck. I mean, that's a guy who's just wasted up there too. And my fear is that UFA offseason, Matt Tkachuk gets a setback in Florida, and the Panthers bring in not only Evgeny Malkin but also Alex Tuck, and they win a third straight Stanley Cup. Does that keep you up at night, Dan? Because it's starting to do that for me. Like one of these guys that we mentioned is probably going to be a Florida Panther by mid-March. Just how it goes.
The Florida Panthers have kept me up at night for 3 years in a row now, so it's not really. It's like what can make it worse? It's like just adding it to the fire. Like that, it would be shocking, but I didn't think they'd be able to re-sign Marchand and Bennett, and they did. And they're the Panthers. I'd rather be during this. I'm not sure if you want to call them a dynasty, but they made the Stanley Cup 3 years in a row, won two of them. I'd rather be a team not competing with them and just let them do their thing while we're rebuilding. And then when Marchand gets too old and maybe some of these guys start leaving, maybe we're good. The rebuild's over and we could start competing again. But yeah, the Panthers are annoying. We didn't really realize it too. I always kind of look back, like the first round in 2023, we're up 3-1. We had no idea We had no idea what was about to happen. We were just like, we're up 3-1 against the Florida Panthers. Like, okay,
Like, all right,
let's
yeah,
finish it
let's take
out.
care of this in 5. Yep, and then we'll
And
go
we
win the
just,
Stanley Cup. And
yeah,
I
it's
feel
like
like I was the only one that year, by the way. I feel like I was the only one that wanted them to play Pittsburgh instead. Not that I was not worried about Florida. Let's not get that twisted. I was not worried about them. Even they won the President's Trophy the year before, but like I was not worried about them. I was just like, dude, Pittsburgh, like this team sucks. Like you can get at them defensively so easily. Like Florida, maybe like I was like, they're probably better than an 8 seed, but no better than like a 6 seed or something. Pittsburgh, I'm like, they would be lucky to be in at all. And everyone else was being like, no, dude, Crosby can turn it on. Malkin can turn it on. I'm like, yeah, but not enough to beat this team. I'm just always going to claim that I was right. We'll never know, but I'm going to claim that I was right. I think they would have beaten Pittsburgh, and then they would have faced Toronto. So that would have been easy. They would have, well, not easy, but they would have won it in 7. Pretty comfortably, and pretty comfortable in saying that. But yeah, the Eichel thing, it was a dream, but that hurts. First week of the season to know that that's not going to happen next year. That's a bit brutal. One thing that will happen this year to close things out here on episode 2 of the Garden Level of Bruins Pod is January the 15th, baby, which is 11 years to the day after I job shadowed Jack Edwards for a day. How about that? How about that for a stat? January 15th, Zdeno Chara, number 33, is going to go up into the rafters. He's going to be one of like the billionth retired numbers in Bruins history. This is, before I get into the positive, because this is all positive here. It really is. But before I get into that, this is so classic Bruins, like Jacob's family Bruins, for 2 reasons. First, like, we're the most expensive ticket in the league outside of Toronto. The team really sucked last year. We've run out of centennial celebrations to do. How can we get asses in the seats and get them to pay a lot of money? Let's start retiring numbers. And that's what they're going to do. It also happened to be announced the morning of the whatever preseason press conference for Sweeney and Neely. And so they knew that there was a bunch of reporters that day that were going to ask them some tough questions about what they added in the offseason, if they're actually going to be any better, what the direction is of this entire franchise. But then they could say, well, this is a big day for the Bruins. Zdeno Chara, one of the great players in this franchise's history, a real winner. And so now you've already entered in the territory where someone's got to ask a question about that, and they get to talk about that, and their social media admins can clip those answers. It's like, it's so fucking classic Bruins, man. Where like only the really cold-hearted like me or us are gonna shit on that, but it's like we know that they did this timing perfectly. Like they knew exactly what they were doing here when it comes to the timing of that announcement. They're going to do it on a Thursday night in January after the holidays when people don't want to spend money to go to a Bruins game, especially one against the Seattle Kraken. And so that's when they put it. So it's just classic Bruins. But Dan, it is a good thing. Zdeno Chara deserves to have his number retired here.
It is a good thing. And, they're doing it against a team that he never played against in his career.
Love that for us.
But, just looking at, that era, and specifically for us, people our age, that childhood, you have the 2011 banner up there, and now you're going to start seeing some numbers that were on that team up on the rafters as well. So it's kind of nostalgic to look back at, the good old days when we were actually won a Stanley Cup. I'm happy. I'm happy we got one. Obviously we went to 2 more, and it could be a lot worse. Could be like the Buffalo Bills losing 4 in a row. But a lot of Buffalo hate on this podcast today, as it should. As it should, though.
Kind of like Buffalo.
But yeah, it's nice to see some numbers up there that were part of that 2011 team. He was the captain, started a new era. I mean, you look when he would sign with the team, like where they were at. No Thornton anymore. They really had no direction. Bergeron was on the team. But
he was like 20.
He was like 20. Yeah, he still had frosted tips. So
bring him back.
he changed Bruins hockey for the good. The expectations for 15 years or so were Stanley Cup or bust. He changed the direction of this franchise. When I think of him, I just think of him hoisting the cup. Obviously, that's number one. But him, I saw on TV at the gym the other day. They were doing a flashback.
Oh, did you go to the gym?
I do.
Nice. Nice.
It was a chest day that day, but
I could see it. I could see it rippling through that hoodie. Yeah.
They were showing the footage of him Game 7 against St. Louis when he had a broken jaw. That was just like one of the iconic moments there too. I
think that's my favorite Chara moment ever.
He couldn't talk. He was eating soft foods. But
and the place went nuts for him. It was great.
That's exactly what you wanted in captain. I'm not sure if Pastrnak will do that when he's captain. We'll see how that goes. But there also was some talk. I'm not sure if you saw it. I think this was a few weeks before. Some people were trying to debate who should get retired first, Bergeron or Chara. I think there was some talk about that, believe it or not. Which obviously Bergeron deserves everything too, but you just gotta kind of go in order. They're gonna be right next to each other anyway. But it'll be a good day. Hopefully the Bruins are still good by January 15th, and we don't have to rely on this retirement to be the lasting hope of the season.
Or highlight of the season.
Yeah, it was highlight of the season.
Bergeron and Chara should be next to each other, but they might put Zach Ronaldo's number up there. 36 might be at Carl Soderberg, 34. Something to think about. Something to think
Omar.
Omar Vezina, one of the best Bruins goaltending seasons ever. That's true. It could be. If in 15 years when they keep needing to get butts in the seats, then Olmark's number might go up there. But you're right, man. Like just closing it out here, like Chara absolutely changed the fortune of this franchise. Some legitimately say like could be the best free agent signing in NHL history. Like the way that first off, like he was a good player before that. I don't think anyone expected him to be what he became. It's funny that Ottawa basically picked Wade Redden to stay over keeping Zdeno Chara. And Chiarelli left Ottawa that offseason, became the Bruins GM, and immediately signed Chara. It was actually Dave Gorton, who's still the acting GM when they signed him. It completely changed it, man. Like they didn't have an identity with Joe Thornton. They knew he was a great player, but didn't have an identity with him. Chara like set a new standard, changed it right away, and it leads to one of the great eras in Bruins history. So happy for him. Of course, they needed to do some corny video with Cam Neely making it a surprise that was very not emotional at all, but they tried to make it out to be, which is fine. Whatever. I'll be there, man. I woke up that morning and bought 3 tickets right away, Dan. So if you want to go, we've got tickets. January 15th.
Let's do it.
Let's do it, man.
I want to see the Kraken play, man.
I need to see it. Zdeno Chara and the Seattle Kraken on the same ice. I could say I was there. That's January 15th, man. Can't wait. See, I've got my one Chara jersey that I can wear to the game. So we'll have to do that. But that's going to do it, man. Next week, we'll be talking about Brad Marchand's return to Boston with the Florida Panthers after a nice little West Coast trip that will certainly not be infuriating at all for the Boston Bruins. But you can catch it all right here on Garden Level, a Bruins pod. We are here every week on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts as well. Watch out for the segments going out through the week. If you missed any part of the show, let us know what you think about this Bruins first week in the comment section below, and about Zdeno Chara's jersey retirement, what the league can't get right. Troll the Buffalo Sabres with us and give us your favorite Zdeno Chara memories. Let us know in the comment section below. Like and subscribe. It helps us keep our jobs and helps us from being sent to Valhalla. We will see you next week on the Garden Level Bruins pod.